Hello there, people of the internet. There's a whole lot of different discussions out there talking about what the best firearms for the modern day are. But with my vast collection that I have available to me, I have had the opportunity to test out a lot of different firearms. And I think that there are, in particular, 5 different firearms that are cripplingly underrated in a modern day usage setting. Now, I'm not necessarily saying take these into a modern combat sort of situation where you have a modern military force against a modern military force, in which case your small arms really don't matter all that much because there's other things that play a dramatically larger role in such a situation. But if we're talking about just a modern day context of your average Joe, your normal, say, US civilian, doing whatever it is that he needs a firearm to be able to do, normally we hear arguments of like the modern capable stuff, like for example, people say go out and get yourself an AR because it will serve you extraordinarily well, which it will. This right here is probably one of the best firearms platform out there on the market, and they'll tell you get a 223 or get a 300 Blackout or get a 6.5 Grendel or insert your choice of AR cartridge here that you think would be the best to suit your particular needs. Well, they'll say go out and get yourself an AK-47 like what I have right here, just because the needs of what most people need a rifle to be able to do. The 7.62x39, fantastic little cartridge. And as far as the United States citizenship goes, something like this right here can cover like 95% of what anyone would ever need a rifle to be able to do. And even the AR guys can appreciate something like this, and even the AK guys can appreciate the AR to some extent. Like, we see the aspects of why the rifles are the way that they are and the capabilities that they have to offer. But there's so many things that people don't really look at, or they don't really take certain platforms into account just because they're not the new modern thing. They're not the most practical of applications. They're not the most capable of weapon systems. But boy, are they, what's the word I'm looking for? Underappreciated in terms of what it is that they actually offer and what it is that they can actually do. Like, the things that we're going to be covering, if you had that, you would still be pretty much set with everything it is that you want to do with a particular rifle and a particular firearms platform. So this right here is one of them. The Ruger Mini 14. Now, there's a lot of people out there that appreciate this platform, but I'm talking about the early Ruger Mini 14s. This firearm was designed around a time period where having like a 3 MOA gun, maybe even a 4 MOA gun, was acceptable accuracy. And it still is acceptable accuracy. A lot of people who go out and get like dirt cheap, bottom of the barrel PSA ARs or Radical ARs or whatever it is that you want to go out and get, they'll call them tack drivers, and then they'll take them out and zero them, and they're rocking like 3 to 4 MOA. And that's a tack driver to them because they said so, and that's just the best accuracy that they can get. Back during the day, whenever these firearms were designed and being produced and used, before the updated series of, I think it's the 583 series, they were 3 to 4 MOA guns, and they got a bad reputation for being inaccurate, and I don't really understand why. Just because they still had that same level of accuracy that was typical for that particular time period. Nowadays, we're a little bit more stringent on our accuracy, and I think that's why Ruger ended up updating these rifles with some various changes and whatnot. But the early Ruger Mini 14s, everyone just seems to think they're inaccurate garbage. Anytime I bring up what my early Ruger Mini 14 right here, they'll tell me get a 583 series because it's going to be a more accurate rifle. Guys, this is a 3 MOA rifle. I've made a ton of videos of me taking this thing out to 100 yards and printing group sizes that are that big. That is accurate enough to be able to do what like most people would ever need a 223 rifle to be able to do. On top of that, we got external mags. Some of them are even interchangeable with the AR platform. Like, for example, I got, if I can grab it, I got these right here. These are actually combo mags that you can shove into your Ruger Mini 14, just like that. Or let's say you are in a situation where you're like, oh no, my Ruger Mini 14 went down, let me grab my Vietnam M16 and that same magazine and go ahead and keep going to work here, and it works in both. They're both a 223 rifle, and that's one of the reasons why you can have magazines designed like that. But the bottom line is that most people would be able to get by with something like this right here. Just because it's an old school style wood and steel gun doesn't mean that it's not capable. I'm going to say it's not as capable as, say, a modern rail system to where you can add whatever accessories and attachments you want onto, say, an AR platform, and you can't exactly swap calibers out on these all that easily. But if you're fine with that 223 5.56 round, then it's a pretty good platform. On top of that, the early versions of these rifles, which is this one included, also has a 1 in 10 twist barrel, and 1 in 10 twist with a 55 and 62 grain bullet is absolutely devastating on soft gelatinous targets, because that bullet starts to tumble basically as soon as it hits that target, versus something like a 1 in 7 twist barrel like out of a PSA or a Radical Firearms AR or something like that, where that bullet's overstabilized and it won't start tumbling until like several inches past the targets. So it definitely has its benefits to have an old school style of firearm like that right there, because that 1 in 10 twist, I'm telling you right now, that's pretty mean. Alright, another really underappreciated rifle that I really wish had more appreciation is going to be your Carcano rifles. Now hear me out on this one before you go angrily typing in the comments down below because you hate Carcanos. So there's some speculations and some discrepancies as to why Carcanos have a bad reputation. I've made videos on this before. It has to do with bullet diameter, it has to do with people not knowing how to line up your sights, and it has to do with the gain twist rifle barrel. If you get yourself a Carcano, specifically one of these shorter carbines, there's certain carbines that have a cut down long rifle barrel where you might have some issues with bullet stabilization. But there's so many carbines out there that don't have that problem. And if you go out and you get yourself a non-cut down Carcano carbine, dude, these are fantastic little bolt action rifles, chambered in 6.5. The ammunition is modern made. It's still made. You can go out and get it. It's not exactly a 6.5 Creedmoor in terms of ballistics, and it's not tremendously accurate, especially since most of your modern day bullets use a 2.64 diameter bullet as opposed to a 2.68, but there is proper ammo that you can go out and get for this thing, in which case you go out and you do that, you're going to see groups on these rifles tighten up quite a bit. These rifles are severely underappreciated nowadays. Nowadays they're kind of seen as like military surplus junk. The Carcano rifle kind of has the same reputation as, say, the Mosin Nagant did back in 2005, and I think that as time progresses and people see just how good of rifles these actually are, like how short and lightweight and compact and handy this 6-shot bolt-action 6.5 light recoiling, light retort rifle is, this is a really awesome little gun. This might be one of my favorite bolt-action rifles. And dude, it is cripplingly underappreciated just because of lack of availability of proper ammunition, and because people just have this stigma that these are not accurate, not good rifles. But dude, if you get yourself a carbine that's not a cut down long rifle, then they can be made to be quite accurate. I actually really like these, and they're severely underappreciated for what they actually are. Alright, another severely underappreciated rifle. Any sort of battle rifle that's not in 308. Like, I have this right here. This is a 7.5 French rifle. This is a Moss 4956. 10-round magazine, semi-automatic of 7.5 French. Just because it's in a non-standard rifle cartridge that you can't really find all that easily, like, say, 308 or 6.5 Creedmoor or something like that, things like this right here are kind of frowned upon and looked down upon. But the 7.5 French has extraordinarily similar ballistics to that 308 round. It's a 150 grain bullet moving at about 2,800 feet per second. And a battle rifle platform like this right here, if you manage to supply the ammunition or get brass, maybe you're a hand loader, insert your choice of how it is that you want to supply that ammunition. Here, these are extraordinarily capable rifles. Like 10 rounds of semi-auto 308, especially since we have external magazines. You can go out and get more mags for this thing if you want to shill out the money to go out and get more mags for this thing. It's a very capable rifle. It's antiquated by today's technology and today's standards, but basically anything that's not in 308 or say 6.5 Creedmoor, in terms of battle rifles, people just kind of avoid them. And I get it because of ammo availability and whatnot, but if you have this and you have the means to keep it up and going, dude, you're going to be just as set as the dude with, say, an AR-10 in 308 or 6.5 Creedmoor, or insert your choice of modern cartridge. Or I even have other battle rifles like this one right here. This is the M1 Garand, or Garand, however it is you feel like pronouncing that, chambered in 30-06. If you have something like this right here, dude, you're pretty much set in terms of a self-loading semi-automatic rifle. Like, there's very, very little that somebody with a rifle like this wouldn't be able to do. You should be able to put down basically anything in North America with something like this, but because it's not the next great hotness with all the sleek rail systems and flashlights and laser lights and all of the stuff that, you know, your new age technologically sound individuals, I'm trying to pick my wording very closely here, they kind of frown upon things like this because they see it as old school antiquated technology. Don't get me wrong, definitely has some limitations, but for what most people in the United States need a rifle to do, dude, this right here would be able to solve like 95% of all of the jobs that you would ever need a rifle to be able to do. Alright, up next, this one is severely underappreciated. The Lee-Enfield system, or just the Lee systems in general. If you have like a Lee Metford like what I have here, or a Lee Speed, or whatever it is that you have, something chambered in 303 British. These right here, because they're bolt-action rifles, they're seen as antiquated technology, but anyone who's ever actually ran these rifles knows how unbelievably fast you can run these bolt-action rifles, to the point to where somebody who is even remotely moderately trained on this platform is going to be capable of keeping up with somebody else with a semi-auto rifle. On top of that, the 303 British round, not exactly an overly common round, but not exactly uncommon either. It's got about the same power as that 308 rifle. It's got a 150 grain bullet moving at about 2,800 feet per second. But because it's a bolt-action rifle, people oftentimes just kind of place this into the same lines as they would any like bolt-action hunting rifle or any sort of antiquated system along that lines. It's not something that you would want to use for, say, defensive purposes or for defense of life and liberty. But the reality is, with that 10 rounds of 303 British ammunition, especially since these also tend to have an external magazine that you can swap out, with how fast that you can cycle the systems on these rifles, I would say that these right here, if you have somebody who knows what they're doing with these rifles, dude, these can be extraordinarily capable rifles, to the point to where we have seen these rifles go up against modern military forces and still hold their own pretty gosh darn effectively. I'm not saying they're as good as a modern gun, like say a modern AR-15 or an AR-10, or maybe a modern AK-47 setup, or a modern insert your choice of rifle here, like a modern FAL or something like that. But you should be able to hold your own with something like this, especially with just the most minute level of training. You got 10 rounds, full power bolt action rifle, but that bolt action, because it is a cock-on close system and it has a really short bolt throw, I think it's only 45 degrees or something like that, dude, you can cycle these things stupidly fast, impressively fast, to the point to where Germans, whenever they were going up against these rifles in, I think, the First World War, they were convinced that all of the British soldiers had semi-auto rifles just because of how fast they were able to cycle these systems. These right here, if you see somebody with a Lee-Enfield rifle, don't go thinking that he's just rocking antiquated technology and is not a serious threat. Because somebody who knows how to use those rifles, they can be some pretty serious threats. Alright, the last one. I think the last one is going to be kind of controversial, but I think that shotguns are cripplingly underrated in terms of a do-all firearm in the firearms community. And I think a lot of that has to do with the same stigma as to why people don't like the AR-15. it does things so well that people find it boring. Like with the AR, I hear a lot of people just say that's a boring platform, which is why I want to go to something else. And it is a boring platform. It basically puts gun handling on easy mode. You can get whatever barrel length in whatever caliber, whatever chambering, whatever weight, whatever length of pull. You can throw whatever attachments onto the rifle. You can set the AR-15 up to do literally whatever it is that you want. And you can essentially do that same thing with a shotgun. Like, you got your short barrels like this for home defense. I get this shotgun is painted pink. But you got your short barrels for home defense. You got your long barrels for hunting purposes. There's all sorts of different ammo that you can run through this thing. Like if you're in a crowded apartment complex, maybe something like number 4 buckshot would do you well, so you don't have to worry about over-penetration. If you're going after birds, there's a ton of different kinds of bird shot out there. If you want something cheap, there's like number 8 target loads. If you're going after really big game, you got like slugs. If you're going after deer or medium game, then you've got your buckshot that you can use. If you're going up against close targets in a jungle, you can use a buckshot with a normal style wad on it, so you get so you get a good adequate spread at say 25 yards. Or you can use something else like flight control, so you get like a really tight spread at 50 yards. There's so many different options out there that you can use your shotgun for, and people understand the versatility. But by a huge margin in the gun community, I see people arguing about what rifle they're going to get for what purpose to do what job. And it's like, so many people are arguing over whether or not they should get a 308 or a 6.5 Creedmoor, or a 6.5 Grendel, maybe something in, I don't know, 6.5 by 55 or a 270 Winchester, or insert your choice here, where for the most part, all of those jobs would be able to be solved with a single shotgun. And people don't like that. They don't like the idea of being able to just get one firearm to do literally everything. And so as a result, it's really not discussed all that often. These are so cripplingly underappreciated in the gun world. And I get it, they are appreciated. There's a lot of people out there who know the value to them and whatnot. But if you really, truly need a one do-all, do-everything firearm, dude, this is the way to go. And especially at the price point that you can get these at. Like, this is a Maverick 88. And you can buy these new for like 250 bucks, and you should be able to handle like literally everything that you would need to handle, short of like doing long distance sniper shooting, which most of us are not doing anyway. If you're shooting beyond 300 yards, which is within the realms of what a, say, shotgun with a rifled barrel and a slug would be able to touch out to, if you're touching out beyond 300 yards, then dude, you are an abnormality. You are not a normal person, especially if you're accurate with that. But yeah, that's 5 guns that I think are cripplingly underrated in the gun community as of right now. Thanks for watching, folks. Appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off. Have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode. Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.